So, I am very excited because I've got a member of my team, Elon Livni, who has spent considerable hours really staying curious about this problem, learning about this problem, interviewing over 50 merchants in depth to understand the pain and how we can solve it along with our product team and engineering teams. And we're gonna walk you through some real product right now. You're gonna see some live demonstrations of how dispute resolve works. And with that, I'd like to welcome Elon to the stage.
You guys can hear me okay, yeah? All right. So as Jeff was mentioning, we talked with dozens of merchants, and we wanted to try to quantify the problem of first-party misuse that Tracy mentioned. And so we're going to do a poll this morning. We want to get a feel for how everyone in this room is sizing up the problem. So if you actually go into the Cvent app right now, you click on the name of this session. The session is called Reining in the Chaos. And you go into the session details. We're going to give you a minute to do this, don't worry. You can hit the poll and answer the question, what percentage of chargebacks do you believe are first-party fraud or first-party misuse? And we're going to give everyone a moment to continue to do that. And while you do, I want you to think about how that share of chargebacks that are first-party misuse, that's actually that share of potentially recoverable revenue for every single person in this room. So everyone has their heads down. It looks like we're close to completion. Wait, one back. Have you found it? All right. All right, let's take a look at some of those results right now. All right, we might be having some technical difficulties here, so if you can see that later on, we'll jump back to that. When we surveyed merchants, we found out that the average rate that merchants told us that they were seeing first-party misuse was far above the amount of revenue that they were actually able to recover. And so I want to talk to you about some of the challenges that are standing in the way of merchants being able to recover chargebacks. And as Jeff mentioned, we have conducted dozens of interviews with merchants, many of whom are sitting in this room. And what we learned is that people who manage chargebacks really get into the nitty-gritty of how that can be done. And they have a lot of great ideas for how to streamline the process, how to make it more efficient, how to recover more revenue. But the problem is that the process of chargeback management is so complicated, it bogs them down so much that they're not actually able to do that. So over the next 7 or 8 minutes, I'm going to walk you through 5 of those challenges and how we built technology that solves for them. So the first pain point that we heard pretty much unanimously across the board is having to swivel chair between multiple gateway portals, PSPs, acquirers. Almost everyone in this room uses more than a handful of those, right? And that means that you're getting your chargebacks from a handful of different sources. And so that means downloading spreadsheets of chargeback data, trying to divvy that up between your different team members, having to switch between different portals that leads further downstream to a lot of other challenges that we're going to see today. And so what we did with Dispute Resolve is we built integrations with more than 35 PSPs and gateways so that we can bring all of your chargebacks into one platform, living under one roof. When you have all of those chargebacks living under one roof, you have one consolidated queue that you can work from, and that already enables you to be more efficient and to be smarter about how you work your chargebacks. The second problem we heard also pretty much unanimously across the board, we actually discovered through our survey that more than 60% of merchants still manage chargebacks manually. And that relates to the challenge of building compelling evidence and submitting those disputes. When you have to build compelling evidence manually, that means going into your order management software and your CRM. That means, depending on the vertical that you're in, getting data from suppliers, getting data from carriers, having to copy and paste all of that information into a Word document. And I'm sure you're getting tired just hearing me speak about it, let alone having to do that every day for every single chargeback. And so with Dispute Resolve, for every single chargeback that comes into the platform, we automatically generate a compelling evidence document that is auto-populated with the data that you already share with Riskified and data that Riskified already enriches on your behalf. If there's anything that you want to add to that compelling evidence file, whether it's a screenshot or some additional text, it's really simple to do that with the built-in editor, and then you just click to submit that representment packet without even leaving the platform. Third challenge that we heard from a lot of merchants, especially merchants who have multiple agents or analysts that are working chargebacks, is how difficult it is to collaborate when the systems are so disparate, and having to keep track of who's doing what. A lot of times we saw merchants that they divvy up chargebacks on spreadsheets, tagging each other in those. Sometimes chargebacks would fall between the seats. It was also really hard to go back a few months after a chargeback had been submitted and to sort of track down what happened with it. And so we built into Dispute Resolve these team collaboration capabilities. You can actually assign chargebacks to specific agents. You can keep track of who's doing what. And with this activity timeline, you can leave comments for each other. You can track any changes that happen, any status updates, and hopefully when that chargeback is won as well. So you can go back if you need to, even a year or 2 or 3 later, and go back and see every single action that was taken on that chargeback. Fourth problem that we heard, and that also Tracy and Jeff talked to with the increase in volume of chargebacks, is that a lot of times you're dealing with a queue that seems to never reach the bottom, either because you have a very high volume of chargebacks, which a lot of merchants do, or sometimes it's more seasonal, right? We're familiar with what we call the holiday hangover, where after the sales rush of the winter holiday season, you're left dealing with a lot of chargebacks, a lot of buyer's remorse. And what that translates to is a lot of chargebacks being left undisputed, as we saw from our survey. And so what we set out to do to help you address all of the chargebacks that you can is what we're building out over the next 6 months. And this is actually one of the things that I'm most excited about in my job to be talking about with you today. And that is building out workflows that allow you to automate your chargeback processes at scale. So what we're building out over the next 6 months is the capability for you to segment your chargebacks into different subsets and build custom workflows for each and every subset. Whether it's a certain reason code from a certain gateway where you want to use a specific template, you can automate that. Whether you want to automate submission of chargebacks, for example, under a certain dollar value, so that your team has more time to work on the more higher value chargebacks. And so that's something that we're building out over the next few months and is going to really put the power at your fingertips to build those custom workflows. But of course, in order to do that, you also need the data. And so the final challenge that I'm going to talk to today is really being able to look at your chargeback data. When you're downloading spreadsheets from different sources, different PSPs and acquirers, it's really hard to collate and interpret that data at scale and to have a good bird's eye view understanding of your chargeback volume. A lot of merchants we talk to, we ask them, what's your chargeback volume? What's your chargeback rate? What is your recovery rate? Percentage. And a lot of merchants, what they told us is, for this gateway, it's this, and for that gateway, it's that, and it's really hard to know what the situation is from that high level. And so, of course, when we bring all of the chargebacks into one platform, and they're all living under one roof, sorry about that, and they're all living under one roof, what we can provide for you is these very rich dashboards that allow you to dig in and understand your performance and understand your chargeback metrics. And you can look into different chargeback sources, and you can begin to build those strategies. And that really informs our vision for Dispute Resolve and our vision for chargeback management in general. With this product, we aim to take you from being the manual engine that is powering your chargeback operations and to put you behind the driver's seat so that you can steer the strategy and really envision how to best go about your chargeback operations. That is it. Jeff, welcome to come back. Thank you.
So let's talk about another thing that reduces or reins in the chaos. And let me start with this statistic, 11,000. I want you to imagine for a moment convincing 11,000 issuing banks to integrate with your platform so that you can get an early signal on when chargebacks are coming in. That is what Kyle Smith and the team at Ethica have done. So I am thrilled to welcome Kyle Smith, Vice President of Global Business Development and Partnerships from Ethica. Kyle's got a career spanning over 20 years in payments. He's been instrumental in the growth of Ethica and all of the relationships that have built, not only the merchant side, but the issuing side, as I mentioned. Please, let's welcome Kyle to the walk-up music taste with Sabotage by the Beastie Boys.
We could have used Hello Brooklyn, we could have used No Sleep Till Brooklyn, but we went with Sabotage.
Well, before we get into the nitty-gritty here, apologies, tell us, how did you end up here on the stage? Talk about the partnership.
Yeah, so first of all, we're thrilled to be here. Thank you, Jeff. We appreciate you guys inviting us here. Our relationship with Riskified goes back about 7 or 8 years. One of my first international business trips with Ethica was to go to the MPE conference in Berlin. And the absolute very first meeting I took as an Ethica employee was with Riskified. I was jet lagged. It would have been the perfect time to negotiate a partnership. But over the years, we sort of worked adjacently in the space, and it was about a year ago. We've spent at Ethica, we used to go after merchants and issuers directly, one by one, and we've spent the last few years sort of building our partner strategy. And so we hadn't fully codified it yet, but in the last year, we've been working with Kevin and Anna on the partnership team here at Riskified, and we've been able to build a partnership where we take all of our early warnings, our cases of confirmed fraud, non-fraud dispute, bottle them up in an API, and deliver them with Riskified through dispute resolve to the merchants. And so we've been able to build a partnership, and that's what brings us here today.
Awesome. All right, so we've got I think as you would agree, a very simple visual here, right? It looks simple to everybody for how this works. So maybe we can walk around it a little bit just to help the audience understand what's happening.
Yeah, sure thing. So if you look on the left side, you see all of our issuers and our issuer partners. As I said, we've built a partner strategy at Ethica. You don't get access to 11,000 banks' confirmed fraud, non-fraud dispute data without partnership, and we've gone to market with dispute management platforms, issuer processors across the globe, and just built partnerships so that we can bottle up that data and add more value in our ecosystem for our merchants. At the end of the day, it's a network of collaboration between issuers and merchants and of the intermediaries that serve those issuers and merchants across the ecosystem. What we've done is if you see the workflow, on the left-hand side, we have the issuer data. We take it, send it through Riskified, and it's delivered with automation to the merchants. I've talked to many of the merchants this week. Some of them are Ethica customers today, and they're manually going in and looking at their alerts, and they swivel chair from their system and go work each one of our alerts. Try to prevent the shipment of goods and prevent chargebacks. And so what we're doing here is just adding automation to that process and building it into your platform in an integrated way. And that helps get that data back over to the issuers and prevent the chargebacks from ever occurring.
Excellent. All right, now for the audience, let's break down the economics of what we're talking about here with the cost of chargeback.
Yeah, just by show of hands, how many people love chargebacks? Okay, it took you about 5 seconds to clap in unison and exactly 0 seconds to determine that you do not like chargebacks. And I think the reason for that is when a chargeback was designed, it wasn't designed to add any value for the issuer, and it wasn't designed to add any value for the merchant. It is an adjudication of a claim and assignation of liability. That's simply what it is, right? It's just a regulatory process that has to occur. We need rules around it. As Tracy was talking about, some of the rules, they're not exactly designed to add value. So there's a lot of costs associated with chargebacks. You lose merchandise, there's chargeback fees, there's lost sales revenue, operational overhead. At the end of the day, we built our network to allow merchants to collaborate with issuers outside the legacy chargeback and just put value back in the whole e-commerce process, the process of buying and selling products. And so that was the original design of Ethica.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's talk about, in simple terms, what are some of the value propositions, if we kind of walk through it?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it's like, how do we get the data quickly enough to you guys so you can stop the shipment of goods? That's ultimately a big value proposition, especially in a retail world. But there's all sorts of different value for different merchants. We use this term at Ethica, a chargeback concern merchant. I think all merchants are chargeback concerned, but we do have some merchants that are customers that get more value out of preventing the chargeback than others. And so in that situation, even if we're not able to stop the shipment of goods, we're still getting an early warning, and we still have data that will enable us to prevent a chargeback from ever occurring. And so that's a big value-added solution for digital goods merchants, merchants that aren't shipping out physical goods, that they can just prevent the chargeback and prevent the fees and everything associated with it. The other thing is what we call link analysis, and its ability to take in those fraud signals and non-fraud dispute signals and look across your ecosystem to identify other fraud throughout your ecosystem. And then the last is just improve the overall customer experience, right? How do we better interact with our customer? How do we engage with them? How are we, making it as frictionless as we possibly can? It's a chargeback process, so it innately has friction. But how do we engage with our cardholder and just try to make it a better experience, throughout?
Awesome. All right. Now, I mentioned, obviously, as a recovering issuer-side technologist, how impressed I was with the scale you were able to achieve on that side. But since there's a lot of great data on this slide, I want to make sure the camera captures it. Walk us through some of the scale that you all have been able to achieve.
Yeah, so as I said, when we first got our start, it was Cap One US Debit and Walmart. That was our first use case, right? We went one by one. We went to an issuer, then we went to a merchant. And the merchants would say, well, you need more issuers. And the issuers would say, well, you don't have enough merchants. And so it was a bit of the chicken and the egg game for a number of years. What our team has done is we've built partnerships with issuer processors like PSCU, Jack Henry, FIS, JHA. We've gone out to Pega, Quavo, Lean, CBK, and we've built API integration partnerships that enable us to get data for the long tail of issuers across the globe. We have today 11,000 plus issuers that send us fraud, non-fraud dispute data, and they either do that directly with relationships that we have built, or they do it through an issuer processor or issuer partner, which is always beneficial to the merchants. The last thing is we were acquired by MasterCard in 2019. We remain scheme agnostic. About 40% of our data is Visa data. We have American Express as a partner, Discover, JCB, ELO. So we are continuing to grow as a scheme agnostic organization that takes data across all schemes, irrespective of what rail it was processed on, and delivered out to our merchants. We've got about 15,000 merchants today and growing. And again, through partnerships like we have with Riskified, we're excited about adding more merchants to the network.
Awesome. Well, let's tell two quick stories of merchant success.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, you've got a couple of case studies here. We have a luxury fashion retailer. I know I've talked to a number of you. We have a few of those in the room. We were able to stop about 12,000 chargebacks in the first year that Ethica was deployed. And that was about $7.5 million in fraud. On an average ticket of about $625. We did that in a direct capacity without any automation, without it being integrated into the platform. And so we think that there's opportunity, and again, this is part of our business case that we've built together. We think there's opportunity to increase the value of the solution when we put it together. The second is a home improvement retailer, and again, really a similar story, about $15 million of fraud prevented, about 15,000 chargebacks with a little bit of a higher ticket average. So again, with the automation, with the partnership, we think we can do some good things together.
Awesome. All right. And then one final, I think, gift to all of you is this is coming soon to GA for our Dispute Resolve platform. You can see here, if you look at that top side, in addition to the chargeback menu, you've got an early alert menu. So this is, we're piping in ethical alerts directly into dispute resolve so your chargeback operations teams can not only easily manage the chargebacks that they're seeing, but also get ahead of some of these pending chargebacks using ethical alerts to do so. So we're really excited about this. It's a great partnership, and Kyle, thank you so much.
Yeah, so excited.
For doing
Happy
this.
to talk to any of you guys after and answer any questions.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Let's give Kyle a big round of applause. Thank you. Okay, so another couple of stats to start us off here. I want you to imagine being at the center, being the friendly adjudicator between 15 million consumers and 1.7 million sellers on a marketplace. Well, that is the day in the life of Mark Porteous, who I'm thrilled to have as a customer and partner of Riskified. Mark has been a executive, he's a senior director of safety and trust at StockX. He was employee number 60, so he's watched the exponential growth of StockX over the last few years, and he is unfortunately and very sadly an alum of Michigan State University who were recent victims to my Penn State Nittany Lions. So sorry about that, Mark. But let's welcome to the stage Mark Porteous. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and how many ascents is this for you now?
This is 4, right? Brooklyn, Boston, Nashville, Brooklyn.
Yeah, back to Brooklyn for the second time. So how many two-timers that have been to Brooklyn twice for ascent in the audience? Anybody? Yeah? We got a couple. Awesome. All right. Well, hey, let's go back to the beginning here, right? As a change agent within your company, you were there, near the beginning. What were some of the pain points that you were dealing with early on, and how were you thinking about it?
Sure. So I'll start by asking a question for the audience. How many of you have tried to kind of manage your chargebacks and your queues through Google Sheets, having everything going through that? Yeah. Not easy. And that was a thing for us, right? I wanted a consolidated location to try to have all of our queues be going into. But what I found was, as was talked about, an endless Google Sheet that then we were going into this PSP and that one and that one and that one to have to be doing all the information back and forth with. And then as our business scaled, we were spending time handling the PSP portals directly, and we started having crashes happen when we would try to submit compelling evidence. So I talked to our processors like, hey, what's going on? Well, companies that are your size don't normally do this direct. There's usually a third-party vendor that you're working with that kind of handles that. So, okay, so we went through a RFP process to find and select a vendor to help the chargeback management for us.
Okay, all right, now, so how did that process go, and what'd you learn?
Sure, so the partner that we ended up with was not Riskified. We integrated in with a well-known established chargeback management vendor, but what I found after getting into it was that we were a bit of a square peg in a round hole. It was a product that worked very well for them and a lot of their merchants, but as a two-sided marketplace, we had buy-side chargebacks, sell-side chargebacks. I needed a little bit more customized reporting, some things that were a little bit more unique to us that they couldn't deliver on. And so then I got to a point where I'm at a bit of a crossroads because we had improved, but here's where we were, and here's where I wanted to get to. And so started thinking about what is the desire, right? What do we want to get to? Where do we want to land? And then at that point, it's a couple years ago, it was a lot of, do you do full automation, right? There was a lot of, get it off of my team, just move it over here and have somebody else take care of the problem completely, fully automated. Well, that concerned me a little bit because, as has been talked about, fraudsters thrive in that, right? They're looking for you to fully automate this so that no one's watching and they can find the loopholes and the weak points and then exploit that. I wanted to have control over our management process, but automation in how we put together the compelling evidence and some of the things that I'd say are like low-hanging fruit there, as well as work on consolidating everything together and then being able to build out some of the specific workflows and different things that we would want to have items handled on.
Awesome. That's great. All right, so you came to us at some point. It wasn't quite working out with the vendor you selected, and since we already had a relationship, I'm also acting as a design partner, said, hey, Riskified, why don't you help me with this problem? Talk me through that.
Sure. So we had been a design partner of Riskified on the Shopper Recover product, and that went very well. And I had a vision of what I wanted to do, and so I approached our Riskified team. It really made sense in my head of, you have our chargeback guarantee, you see all of our information, you already have it. But what you're doing is, kind of filtering out the non-fraud while you all handle the fraud chargebacks. Well, instead of filtering it out to ignore, why not take that, build in a queue management system, and now I can have my team be working exclusively through the web app and seeing all of our stats and our reports around both our health of our fraud chargebacks and our non-fraud, and be able to work on those and have that one centralized location. And so we talked through that. It was a good fit. The Riskified team was really excited. So at that point, we agreed on it. And Lexi Tincher from my team and Oren and Aya from your all's team, they really dug in and put their heads down and started working on the design and implementation, and kind of helped build out what we know as dispute resolve.
Yeah, it was fun, and you and Lexi did a reverse demo with us, which is where they actually show us how they're using our technology, and it was really compelling to see what you all have done over at StockX with it. So, okay, what advice do you have to the merchants in the room who are dealing with the chaos of chargebacks? They're looking for next steps move forward. How should they think about this?
Sure. The key point is to try to best understand, what do you want to accomplish. Start at that point and think rainbows and unicorns, right? What would be my dream scenario? After you have a sense of that, then start with incremental problem solving. What is the first thing that's really bothering you? Do you not have good insight on your queue? Okay, start solving that problem. Get that one taken care of. Progress is your friend. You're not going to be able to boil the ocean, but you can make that incremental progress to be able to say, all right, now I'm on a roll, now I've got things that are moving, and that's really kind of the starting step to help improve. If you are looking for partners on this, really be thinking about yourself and your selfish needs and desires. Don't settle for a product that somebody says, well, you'll fit in this, and this is how we do it. Make sure they understand your needs and, bring to them what you want to do, because I promise you there are partners that really do want to help you with what you're trying to accomplish and really care about your needs. It's just making sure that you filter through and don't settle for what works for somebody else but not for you.
Excellent. All right, great advice from somebody who's walked the path. Thank you so much, Mark, for being here.
Absolutely.
Cheers. And let's give Mark a big round of applause. And so, across our merchant network, we're also seeing other stories of success with dispute resolve. The team put together a couple of these case studies, showing an EU agency that's gotten 46% win rates, sustained throughout the growth of their volumes, and also a U.S. home goods store that has increased their recovered revenue by 50% using the automation and technology available with dispute resolve. If you want to learn more about it, we're going to be here right at the break. I believe we all get a coffee break here, get some caffeine. If you want to talk to Mark and you want to talk to Kyle and Alon, we're going to be out there. I'll leave you with three things. First, the problem's not getting any smaller, folks. We got a $165 billion problem, and it is growing 12% year over year. Manual approach to this does not keep up with the increasing volume that we're seeing, especially from the merchants that we've surveyed. And there is a good hybrid model here. Let's use the talented people that we have on our teams. Let's empower them with the right technology to solve the chaos of this problem. Grab the report if you want, and we'll see you out there if you want to talk some more. Thank you.